same time of the year in 1985. So I'm sure most of you know, I did my engineering from REC Kurukshetra. I can never call it NIT, from 83 to 88. So this was a time, similar time in 85, and I was very involved in extracurricular activities, festivals and things like that. And I was also the president of Fine Arts Club for the 5 years I was here. And we were not just active in our own college, but we were also pretty active in the festivals and events that would happen in the university. So there was this annual youth festival that was happening in university, in this big auditorium. And I was in charge of design there, which meant that I did all the posters, the signages, the stage backdrop, designing everything. So the festival was going on and they was sitting there. And there was this Haryanvi group dance going on the stage. You know, this typical high energy, high voltage, this group of girls all decked up in Haryanvi dresses and running around on the stage to high beats. And that's when I saw her first. And that's when I fell in love with her. So that's where I met my love of my life. Fortunately, it was not one of those one-sided love. And some of our mutual friends introduced us, and pretty soon we were going very strong. And in the coming months and days and months and all that, we started planning. We started planning about our life, when we would be married, when we would be together, right down to the kind of furniture and the decor that we would have in our own house, which we would ultimately buy when we get married a couple of years down the line. So things going good. Pass out in 88, go to Delhi, pick up a job. Did not take a dream job in Bangalore because we want to be together in Delhi. And then I joined a company, and I'm talking about 1989. Joined a company and I was sent for induction training for a couple of weeks out of station. So we had gone to Khandala. And these were the times when you did not have mobile phones and you were not kind of all the time connected to each other, right? So this was the time when you had STD calls and trunk calls and you had to book them at atrocious rates. So I finished my induction training, come back to Delhi, call her on the landline and I say, hey, it's been a long time, let's meet. And that's when she told me, and that's when I discovered that she had married somebody else when I was away on induction training. I said, that's not fair, right? I had made a whole plan. There was no plan B. I had planned my whole life. I had not planned it without her. But as Mike Tyson famously said, everybody has a plan till they get punched in the face. So that was my plan. But just like the most stupid things and the most hurtful things, the most wonderful things and the most interesting things that happened in my life have all happened without a plan. So I was working in Wipro in Delhi, and I was responsible for selling a software called Pro Engineer from a company called Parametric Technology Corporation. So one fine day I was sitting in an office, one of those days when you have to make your expense statement. So I was sitting and doing my expense statement, and Greg from Singapore, Greg was the head of Asia Pacific sales for Parametric, and he calls me up and says, hey Anil, we are thinking of starting our direct operations. Would you be interested in setting it up for us? And I am saying, MNC, interesting, good opportunity, let me look at that. And after 3 hours, I had a signed employment contract in my hand, giving me 3 times the salary I was getting in Wipro. So if somebody had told me that morning that, by today evening, you would be leaving Wipro, where I had worked for 5 years and I was really having a good time and I had a long-term plan to be with Wipro, that by evening you would be leaving Wipro and you would be joining this thing, I would have laughed at them and I said, what a big joke. So here I was in Parametric. One of the customers that we had was Patni, and I had sold some software to them. So one fine day I was sitting with the head of that division of Patni, and he said, hey Anil, we are looking for somebody to head our worldwide sales. Why don't you look at that? And I said, okay, international sales, international travel, that sounds interesting. And I joined Patni and I started looking after the sales. So traveled all over the world, had a sales team, US, UK, Europe, Asia Pacific, Japan, the whole thing. And we had appointed a partner in UK to jointly sell projects there. And this partner introduced me to a Israeli company called Cimatron, which wanted some help with their business plans in India. And I said, sure, why not? I'll help them out. So I met these guys. They had done a market research. They had a whole report. And I helped them clean that up. Couple of months down the line, they came back to me and said, hey Anil, we were trying to find somebody to set it up. We are not able to get a good guy. Why don't you do it for us? And I said, yeah, that's interesting, setting up something on your own. And then I set up Cimatron's operations in India. And I was doing that, making good money, appointed distributors, had some good customers. And this is like year 2000. I was traveling on a business trip. I was in Chennai. I was free in the evening. So one of my classmates from Kurukshetra, Karthik, he was there. And we said, hey, come on over, let's have drinks. So sitting in the restaurant having drinks. And then Karthik tells me of this plan about doing a e-learning startup. I had never heard of e-learning before that. And I said, what's e-learning? He says, when people go online to learn, that's e-learning. And I'm talking about 2000 here. And he wanted to do a startup. And I said, would you like to do that with me? And I said, so we talked about it, did a bit of research. And I said, okay, let's do that. And that's how I set up 24/7 Learning in early 2001. And we became the India's largest e-learning implementation company with about 150 plus customers like Tata Motors, Aditya Birla, Samsung, Infosys, Wipro, companies like that. We also went ahead and raised multiple rounds of investment. So we had some angel investors. In fact, my first angel investor was my boss from Wipro. That's who you go back to. I need your help. And then we raised $4 million from Network 18, which was India's largest media group there. So did that for about 12-13 years, ran that. In 2013, I exited from that. And then I started working with startups. And this is about year and a half back. I was running a startup accelerator in Gurgaon. And I get a call from a guy called Manish Chetri, who was head of events at ABP News. Now, Manish used to be earlier in Network 18 from where we had raised $4 million. So we knew each other since then. So he calls me up and says, boss, there's this startup reality show and we would like you to be the anchor judge on that. And I said, look, I have never done even a regular TV show, forget a national prime time startup reality show. And he said, no, we think you will be great. And I said, yeah, but sounds interesting. And I think it will be fun. And then I spent the next 30 to 45 days traveling all over the country, meeting, auditioning almost 500 startups, grilling entrepreneurs, throwing a lot of them out, and selected the best of one, So if you look at my almost 30 years of journey, I passed out in 88, I've been working for about 29 years now. Was it a grand plan that I had, or did I just stumble from one thing to another? So, and at this stage, I think I still have another 20, 30 productive years ahead of me. How are they going to be? Can I plan about it? Come to think of it, just 5 years back, could we have imagined the impact of things like, for example, electric vehicles would have on our world, or smartphones, or Uber, or big data analytics, artificial intelligence, We had no clue that this is what is going to be even 5 years back, forget when I did my engineering. And forget engineering, if you look at other areas like medical sciences, there are companies now who are growing organs from scratch. Could we have imagined that 5 years back? So can we imagine what is going to be 5 years or 10 years down the line? And can we plan for that? To everybody here, I think most of you still have at least, if not more, 15 to 20, productive years ahead of you guys. And I would like to make a bet to you today. We are today on 5th of November 2017. And I would like you to think on 5th of November 2027, and I bet that you would be doing something that you have no clue of right now. You know, and that is how the whole. So how do you plan for something that you do not know is going to happen or not happen? So when we were in college, and I'm sure that happened with a lot of you here, our parents, our teachers, they said, hey, you need to plan, you need to have a goal, you need to have a lakshya. You cannot just go, with your life aimlessly, going from one point to another. And at that time, it kind of seemed pretty simple that let me go and do a course which will help me get a job which is well paid. And like, for example, a couple of years back, everybody said, and I'm sure now also a lot of people say that, who are not aware, that the best thing to do is go and do computer science, become a software developer, go and join this armies of software developers at these big software development factories which are out there. And it's a sure short way of making good money and having a good career. But then came along software automation, and it is now eliminating all the entry-level software development jobs. And in fact, this year is the first year where all the big IT companies, the software development houses, they are hiring less number of engineers, entry-level engineers, than they have done in the previous years. So what's going to happen to all these guys who have been planning or who are about to enter or spend 4 years or 5 years or 6 years of their life learning some skill which is already becoming redundant? And that brings me to this point, that is life planning a reality or is it a myth? Does it even make sense to plan about life? So come to think of it, what is a plan? A plan is kind of a wish list, right? So we make a list and say, we wish that these are the things that happen to me as I go ahead with my life. It's also kind of a direction, right? I'm at point A and I want to go to point B. What do I need to do to go to the point B? But as we go in life, we know that the factors that will decide what we end up being, what we end up doing, the opportunities that will come to us that we do not even know exist today, with all these in action, how effective or how practical is to do that plan? But look at the human nature. Humans abhor uncertainty. Humans cannot live with something which is undocumented, unclassified, or not defined. So it's in human nature that we want to define everything. But a plan is just a wish list. It's not what actually may or may not happen. So when things do not go as you have planned, does it make sense to get upset about it? Or you say, hey, this is what we thought will happen and this is what we are going through. So my takeaway from my 30 years and 52 years of life is that yes, it is important to have a plan, but plan is just a direction in life. You can drive the plan, but the plan cannot drive you. And you need to keep your eyes open, your hearts open, and go through life and look at things, look at opportunities, look at situations, look at choices that we get. And I believe that rather than a plan, our life is a chain reaction. And it's a chain reaction of choices that we make that lead us down a path, good or bad, and to a point where there's some other choice to be made, and then we go take another path, and it kind of goes on like that. So keep your heart open, keep your eyes open, have a plan, but then let life take you where it is supposed to be. Thank you. Thanks for your time.